Rob, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Let's start by maybe for people who don't know Ancestry, just giving them a little bit of an idea of who you are, what you do, and what's important to you.
Sure. So I'm Rob. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Ancestry. For those of you that don't know our brand, we are the world's largest family history and consumer genomics company. If you have not checked out the site, you should absolutely do so. It's incredibly transformative and just a fantastic way for you to get to know yourself a little bit better.
Yeah, you bet. Let's just talk about halo moments for a moment, because lots of people have their own definitions of what a halo moment is. What is a halo moment to you? What does that mean to you?
So to me, as I've been thinking about this, a halo moment is just one of those moments in time. I think that at Ancestry, we like to call them aha moments. And they're moments where when they're delivered and you get them and you consume them, it changes something in you. And it either changes your perception of the brand or the company that you're working for in certain instances. For us, the aha moment is the one that kind of grabs you and really, in many ways, makes you a customer for life, because you've discovered something new about yourself or your family that has moved you and makes you want to go find even more of those.
Right. So, what are the best examples of that? What are some specific examples of halo moments?
Sure. So, further history on Ancestry. About 3 years ago, we went from being a public company to a private company. So we were purchased by a private equity firm, and during that process, we were meeting with a lot of these companies that were looking to purchase Ancestry, and these meetings are incredibly long, like very, very long, as you're doing these management pitches. And so I'm sitting in one of these meetings and we take a little break, and this guy from one of the private equity firms who I'd never met comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I just want to say thank you." And I was like, "For this pitch? Like, we've been here forever. This can't be something to thank me about." But he said, "No, I had never engaged with Ancestry. I'd been following you guys as an analyst, but now that we're involved in this process, I've actually signed up for the service because I needed to better understand what was going on." And all of a sudden, I got hooked and spent all weekend on the site finding just these amazing things. And as we were sitting here in this meeting, and please don't tell anybody about this, as I'm telling all of you guys about this. This was 3 years ago, so it's all good. You sent me a hint. So when you sign up and you start building a family tree, we search our 14 billion records to find information about you and your family, and we surface them as a hint. It's a little shaky leaf that you click on and say, "Hey, we just found some really cool information." He's like, "I looked down, my app buzzed. It was the Ancestry app. I saw I got a hint from you. I clicked on it, and I found my great-grandfather's World War I draft card." And I haven't been able to focus on anything but looking at that card and really just connecting with him. I didn't really know him, but now I feel like I actually know something about him. And I didn't even realize how visceral something like that would be, to see this is the card that he then had to go fight in the Great War. And that was just one of those unbelievable examples where somebody was actually interrupting a private equity pitch to talk about that. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty powerful imagery. Yeah. What other great examples have you come across in terms of halo moments?
Sure. So there's actually, this one was so great, we actually shot it as so if you see one of our ads on TV right now, we've actually gotten customer testimonial ads up. And one of my favorites is Kyle. So Kyle, he's a fireman from Queens. And he is absolutely a firefighter, born and raised his entire life in Queens, no question about it. And it starts with him saying, "When I was growing up, we were German." And it has him in his lederhosen. He's like, "We wore lederhosen, we did German dance, we ate German food." And then I went to Ancestry and I started building out my family tree, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and there were no Germans. And I was like, "Where are the Germans in my tree?" So I went and I took an Ancestry DNA test. And I get the results back, and guess what? We're not German at all. I look at my results, and I'm basically Scots-Irish, and the spot ends saying, I traded my lederhosen for a kilt, and it's got him in a picture of his kilt. And for him, he's like, "Look, my entire life, I've identified with being with a certain background or a certain ethnicity, and now I've got a new one, and I'm going to go discover it." And so I believe he's on his way to Ireland and Scotland, and he's wants to go explore where he came from now. And That's awesome.
That is pretty awesome. Also makes me worried because I claim I'm a quarter of Sicilian, and I don't want to lose that.
So I've got a test that could help you either validate it or not.
I may not want to take that test. I quite like being a quarter Sicilian. So look, it's MobileBeat. We're talking about mobile and growth within mobile. What does mobile what part has that played in making this happen for you and these halo moments, and how does Ancestry use mobile? And importantly, I think what challenges and roadblocks did you come across along the way to using mobile? Because I think everyone would like to know about those and how you got by them.
Absolutely. So mobile actually is an incredibly large part of our strategy, and I would argue that it's one of the biggest pieces of our strategy right now. The world is going mobile. Anyone who's ignoring that is ignoring that, and good luck. But even just the example I gave with the pitch with the private equity firm, that these moments happen when they happen, and the ability to be able to deliver them to people wherever they are, whenever they are, being able to leverage their device has really, really opened this up and is just kind of changed who we are as a company. Because in the past, it was a very when I first started at Ancestry, so like I said, I've been here for about 5 years, and when I first started, it was a research hobby for genealogists, and people would come and they would research their family history using documents. We've evolved. We're no longer Ancestry.com, we're Ancestry. We're a place where anybody can find unbelievable discoveries for themselves. And really, mobile has been one of those key things that has moved us from a research hobby to a storytelling, consumption-based service where anybody can come in, enter just a little bit of information, and when you're walking around riding Muni, we can get you with our app and you can see these things in real time. And when you're with your family, you can, hey, look what I just found. I found great-grandpa's World War I draft card, or here's the immigration documents that your parents used when they came into the country. And that has just completely changed who we are. Now, that's not easy. Like, to transform, not only just talking as a marketer up here, transforming your brand from Ancestry.com to Ancestry, where you really are instead of being for the few, being for everyone. That had its challenges in and of itself, but very specifically on the mobile front, we really had to change sort of the mental model of how people engage with Ancestry. That it has gone from, let me sit there in my dark corner of my room and research and go through census records and immigration records, to, I have a story to tell, and this story is about myself, or it's about person X who came from me, and being able to deliver that in a way that people can consume that and share that and engage with that. That was a really big challenge, and it was a really big challenge for our product team, and it took us a few years to get that right and to change that model that kept the core customer thrilled and brought in a whole new segment of people that were also thrilled by it.
Were there specific issues along the way that stumbled you, that made you think you had to do something unique, different to what everyone else had?
Yeah, I would say so, and I would say that part of the challenge, and part of the challenge that we had was, what is our mobile strategy? That if somebody is mobile a one-stop shop experience where people could and should engage exclusively on a mobile device with us? Is mobile part of the journey, part of the experience? Do we focus on the website? Do we focus on the app? I mean, these were all like hard questions that we, in some ways, did a good job of overcoming with good strategy, but in other ways, it was test and learn and test and learn. And one example of that was our mobile website strategy was responsive design. That, hey, we've got a great website, let's just make it responsive. Form factors are completely different on phones and tablets. Why mess around with it? And that was our strategy, and it actually didn't work. That we found that people who were engaging with us first on mobile were really struggling to engage with us. And so the entry pages that we have, so the logged off homepage, how people interact with us when they're first getting started, we actually developed mobile-only applications for those. So when you go to our website, it looks completely different on a mobile phone than it does on the desktop. And that was actually one of the more transformative things that we've been able to do from a mobile standpoint, because it worked and has completely changed our philosophy on how we design the site, how we leverage our app, how we leverage the desktop, and realize that the world in many ways is an ecosystem, and we need to treat it that way.
Right. User-generated content is a big part of what you do.
Huge.
And user-generated content itself is great for creating those halo moments, but it also comes with some inherent challenges and issues, right?
Yes,
Because if it's user-generated, how can you check that it's actually the right content in the first place?
Yep.
How do you get by that? How do you police that? What do you do to make sure that user-generated content is absolutely right?
Yeah. So that's a very, very good question, and you're 100% right. In fact, some of the most valuable content that we have on our site is user-generated content, and I would say that there's really two categories of user-generated content for us. The first one is content that users actually, upload to the site. So pictures of family or their own documents, their own records, their own stories that they put up. Those actually, from a quote-unquote fact-checking experience, really isn't that hard for us because we have really good indexing capabilities, and at the end of the day, someone uploads a picture of grandpa, it's generally a picture of grandpa, and that's great. The other side of it, though, is making sense of all the data we have. So as I mentioned, we have about 14 billion records on our site. How those records come together to form the story of a person is actually a big part of our user-generated content. So when you say, my paternal grandfather is Samuel Singer, and when I say, okay, this is his census record, this is his birth record, this is his World War II draft card, here are the muster rolls from when he was at. That's actually, for us, user-generated content, and it's content that other people who are in my family can leverage. And that's the part that's a lot harder to curate. Because one of the new features that we did provide when I talked about making this transformation into being more of a story-oriented consumption experience is taking a person in your family tree and aggregating all the research that everybody else on the site has done for that person. We call that the person page. And now you can go and you can look at the timeline of them, and you can look at all of the facts and figures and content that's out there. And we had to develop some incredibly complex algorithms and technology for when you say this is his census record and I say this is his census record, and they just happen to be different census records. So.
When I've used some of these solutions before, a long time ago, when I didn't really want to know that I wasn't quarter of Sicilian, sometimes you come against a roadblock. You get to a point where you just can't go any further. How can we assist people to get past that roadblock? What are the things that you're doing to make that happen? How do we knock those walls down? Sure.
So there's a number of ways that we go about doing this. One of them is our Ancestry DNA product. So it's a saliva-based, it sounds disgusting. It's only really disgusting when we aggregate how many people have spit, and we talk about that in terms of gallons last year, but we'll save that for another time. But through our Ancestry DNA product, we have a new feature called New Ancestor Discoveries. And so when people take this test, for the first time now, we can link you to people who are in your past, who are deceased, that you're related to, that are not in your family tree. And we've been able to do this because of the critical mass that we have in our DNA database, as well as into the Ancestry base. And so one of the big pieces of feedback that we've gotten, which is what we were seeking when we developed this, was, wow, I thought I got to the end of the line. Through this, you helped me break, we call it brick wall busting. You helped me break through this brick wall, and now I've got all of these new ancestors that I can go research and discover how I'm related to them. And so that's really one big way, and that has been that was one of the big sort of use cases we came up with when we launched the DNA product a number of years ago. Secondly, we have our community, and our community is fantastic for this. So we have a very vibrant community, both on our Facebook page, as well as just within the community boards that we provide on Ancestry itself. And a lot of times what we get are customers that will post this as a question. Like, I need help. I can't find this person, or I know my family came from here. How can I discover the link in, because it stops at this record on Ellis Island that I can't get to. And it is amazing how the community comes together and helps each other out in their research. And then the last piece, if neither of those two things work, and typically those work, we actually have a professional genealogy service. It's called ProGen, Ancestry Pro Genealogists. And they're the group that does all the research for the TV show, Who Do You Think You Are? So when you see those awesome stories that are on that show, they're the ones that are behind all the research for that. And people will say, I've got this mystery that I need to solve, or can you help me discover X, Y, and Z? And they can basically find anything, anywhere. It's pretty amazing when they get to work on that. So.
But it strikes me that the data that you have is probably the most personal data you could possibly store on somebody.
It is, yeah.
And when we then tie that into mobile smartphones are pretty much the most personal devices people walk around with. So it's kind of like personal squared at this point. That means you have an awful lot of responsibility when it comes to the privacy and security of that information. Can you speak to that for a little bit and give people an idea of what it takes to make sure that consumers are incredibly happy with you having that kind of personal information?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that is a very, very serious question that we face, and we take privacy extremely seriously. One, because we take it seriously, but two, obviously for the reasons you outlined. Like, this is unbelievably personal information. So there's really a couple of things that we have in place. One, every user has the option to make their trees public or private. And if you make your tree private, nobody has access to it, including us. Like, we don't use it in any of our own sort of aggregations on the back end. You can make it private, and it will safeguard it. And if somebody gets a hint saying, hey, I think we're related, I would have to ask you permission to share your tree privately with me so that we can compare research notes. So that's one way the user can empower themselves to do it. The second thing is we never reveal living person data in somebody else's tree. So when you build out your information, if you have a public tree, of which the vast majority of our trees are public because there is that community aspect to it that is so powerful in this, anybody who's alive that's either designated as living in your tree or, and I need to get the actual number, but I believe it's within 110 years of today with their birth date, we mask that information. So if I was to look at your tree, I would not be able to identify anyone that was living. I would only be able to identify people who were deceased, which is, for most people, that's like the perfect level of privacy for them.
Right. So we got time for a question from the audience. Anybody in the audience want to ask a question? Get a microphone to you. I'm itching for somebody to ask how many gallons of saliva it was.
Fuck, I can get that, but I would have to email somebody. It was a lot, though.
Okay, so let's talk just briefly about.
I think there's a
do we have a question over here?
Obviously, Ancestry's a huge genealogy database. How do you guys coexist or cooperate with the Mormon Church database?
Sure. So that's a great question. So there's really a couple of ways. So we actually have an agreement with the LDS Church, and in the agreement with them is they've got this massive vault of data that we've always looked at very longingly to get onto our site. And so really the deal that we have with them is that in exchange for the data over at the LDS Church, where we can index it, we can store it, we can put it onto our site, which is really how we've gotten a lot of content throughout the world, like with German or new German records that are coming out, really came as a part of this LDS agreement that we have an agreement with them, and their members get access to Ancestry in exchange for that. So it's actually a very peaceful coexistence at this point, if you're an LDS Church member.
Excellent. Well, I'd like everybody to thank Rob for spending his time with us today and answering all questions. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you.